The car is a 2011 Toyota Camry, silver, the shade that was never fashionable enough to fade out of style because it was never in style to begin with. There's a hairline crack in the plastic housing of the driver's side mirror from a low-speed clip in a grocery store lot 2 winters ago. You looked up the part, $180 installed. You looked at the crack every morning for 2 years and never once ordered the part. The seats are cloth, not leather, because cloth was the base trim, and the base trim was $2,400 less. The interior smells like nothing, which is its own kind of clean. Not the clean of a detailer, the clean of a person who has never eaten a meal in this car in 14 years of owning it. You park on the 3rd level of the garage at work, the level with the long ramp that half the building refuses to walk, and you tell yourself it's because the spots are wider. It isn't. It's because the walk is 4 minutes where your phone stays in your pocket and nobody needs anything from you. Your coworker Priya parks by the elevator on level 1. Her car is a 2024 Range Rover Sport, a green so dark it reads as black under the garage lights unless the sun catches it directly, which it does exactly never in a parking structure. She leased it 11 months ago and has mentioned it 4 times, unprompted, in ways that were each technically about something else. Priya does not know what's in your accounts. Nobody in that building does. The number is $2.4 million, split across a brokerage account and an old 401k you rolled over twice, and the mortgage on your condo has been gone for 2 years. At a modest withdrawal rate, that portfolio alone could carry your life without your salary ever showing up again. You are not driving a 14-year-old Camry because a better car is out of reach. You're driving it because somewhere around age 31, you did the arithmetic on what arriving actually costs, and you have never found a version of arriving that was worth more than what it would take away. There was no crisis at 31. That's the part people always expect and never get. You weren't behind on anything. You had a decent job and a bank balance that moved in a tight, exhausting range. Enough coming in to look fine on paper, not enough left over at the end of the month to call it anything. The specific feeling wasn't poverty, it was proximity to zero. Every emergency, every car repair, every slightly bad month erased whatever had accumulated and started the count over. You remember the exact evening it clicked, even though nothing about the evening looked like a turning point. You were sitting at a kitchen table that wasn't yours yet, doing the math on a lease you were about to sign, because the car you had at the time made a noise near the wheel well that a mechanic had quoted at $1,100 to maybe fix. The new lease was $389 a month, which sounded, in that moment, like the responsible choice, a known number instead of an unknown repair. You had the calculator open to compare the two. What stopped you wasn't the $389. It was scrolling up and seeing what $389 a month, left alone in an account instead, would look like in 20 years. You didn't sign the lease. You paid the $1,100. Nobody else in your life ever heard about that night. It wasn't dramatic enough to tell anyone. It was just the first time the math beat the feeling. You made one adjustment that mattered more than any of the smaller ones. You kept the car you already had instead of trading up when the loan ended, and you took the apartment 1 bedroom smaller than the one your raise technically qualified you for. Together, those 2 decisions freed up $1,650 a month, and you set it to leave your checking account automatically on the 2nd of every month, before you had the chance to think of somewhere better for it to go. You didn't experience this as restraint. Restraint implies you were fighting the desire for something else the whole time. You weren't. You wanted the number to move more than you wanted the upgrade. Not morally, not virtuously, just more, the way one preference quietly outranks another. That preference held for 19 years and turned $1,650 a month into $2.4 million in a mix of index funds you rebalance twice a year and mostly forget about. The rule. The years matter more than the return. Almost anyone can find $1,650 a month with a calculator in an afternoon. Almost nobody keeps sending it for 19 years without renegotiating the deal with themselves the first time a nicer option shows up. Priya's Range Rover costs her, all in, lease, the insurance tier that comes with a vehicle in that price bracket, the fuel, the service plan she'll need the moment the factory warranty runs out, somewhere near $1,580 a month. Over a typical 4-year lease cycle before the next one, that's just under $76,000 spent to arrive at 0 equity and a new lease. The same $76,000, invested instead across 4 years, doesn't turn into a fortune on its own. It turns into roughly $92,000, not the headline. The pattern is the headline. Priya is 39. She has had a car payment since 23. Before the Range Rover, a BMW 3 Series. Before that, a financed Jeep she doesn't bring up anymore. 16 years of car payments averaging maybe $550 a month is $105,600 in payments alone, before insurance premiums, before fuel, before the depreciation the vehicle itself absorbed. Invested instead at a modest long-term return over that same 16 years, that number is closer to $210,000. Priya does not have $210,000 sitting anywhere. She has a Range Rover on level 1 and 8 months left on the lease, at which point the decision will present itself again, dressed up as a reward she's earned. The rule: a payment isn't a transportation cost. It's a monthly subscription to depreciation, billed as if it were normal life. When it comes up, and it comes up rarely, but it comes up, the question is always the same. Why not just buy something nicer? You can clearly afford it. The question assumes the Camry is a leftover habit from before the money existed, something the $2.4 million should have retired by now. It's a reasonable assumption. It's also backwards. The Camry was never a stage you were passing through. It's the actual preference. Not for this specific car. You feel nothing for the mirror housing you never fixed, but for what the car costs you each month, which is close to nothing, against what a status vehicle would cost, which is real money pulled directly out of the portfolio's ability to run without you. A nicer car doesn't change what Tuesday feels like. It doesn't change what your bank offers you. It changes the withdrawal rate your money can safely support, permanently, for a car that depreciates the day you drive it out of the lot. The rule: at 7 figures, the car stops being a question of what you can afford and becomes a question of what you're willing to spend just to be seen a certain way. The same logic runs underneath the condo, which nobody who's visited would call impressive. 2 bedrooms, one of which is technically an office, bought 9 years ago for $263,000 in a building without a doorman or a view worth mentioning. Priya's building has both. Her unit is a rental, $3,400 a month, in a high-rise with a gym she uses maybe twice a year, and a rooftop she's mentioned exactly as often as the Range Rover. Your mortgage payment, before you paid it off, was $1,340 a month. The difference between her rent and your old payment is $2,060 a month. Invested instead of spent on the version of an address that photographs well, that's the second engine that got you to $2.4 million. Quieter than the car story, but larger over the same 9 years. You don't say any of this at dinner when someone mentions Priya's building admiringly. You just note, privately, that the building isn't paying anyone's mortgage down. It's paying someone else's. The rule: housing is the same trade as the car, just with a bigger number attached. The upgrade you can technically afford and the upgrade that improves your actual position are rarely the same upgrade. 2 years ago, when you refinanced before paying the condo off outright, a wealth advisor at the bank called you directly. Not the branch, the private group. She'd pulled the account history before dialing. She knew the balance, knew you hadn't touched the principal in years, and offered a rate that wasn't posted on any public page, along with a line of credit reserved, she said, for clients at your asset level. She had never seen the Camry. If she had, she'd have seen a 14-year-old sedan with a cracked mirror housing and no obvious reason to call. What she saw instead was the version of you that shows up on a balance sheet. The version institutions are quietly built to notice and reward, because it's the version least likely to ever actually need them. The rule: financial institutions don't respond to income. They respond to the distance between what you have and what you owe. High income with high payments isn't wealth to them. It's exposure. There's a cost to the invisibility, and it isn't imaginary. There have been dinners where someone asked what you drive with a casualness that wasn't casual at all, and got their answer, and recalibrated. Not cruelly, just visibly, the way people quietly resort someone into a lower category without saying so. You've watched slightly less generosity extended to you in professional rooms than gets extended to the person who pulled up in something that confirmed the number they assumed about you. You've let it happen, because correcting it would mean announcing a balance out loud in a room, which is the one thing the entire approach was built to avoid. There was a work trip 18 months ago where 4 of you split a rental car, And without discussion, Priya was handed the keys. Not because anyone asked, just because the assumption of who should be driving formed itself before anyone noticed it forming. You didn't correct it. Correcting it would have required a sentence you weren't willing to say out loud in a rental car lot in front of colleagues, so you sat in the back and let the assumption stand, the way you let most assumptions about you stand now, because unwinding them costs more than carrying them. You ran that trade-off once, the cost of being underestimated against the cost of a car payment that quietly taxes the portfolio for the rest of your life. And you haven't needed to run it again. It's a Thursday in March. Your 1 o'clock ran 11 minutes long because the deck had 4 more slides than the point required. Your phone stays face down on the desk the entire time. The portfolio added just under $17,000 last month. Not contributions, not withdrawals, growth. Generated while you sat in meetings and slept, and drove the Camry up the long ramp to level 3. Priya catches you by the elevator. The Range Rover needs a service visit, something electrical, something the dealer wants $900 to diagnose before they've even started. She asks if the Camry's been holding up. You tell her it starts every morning without asking anything of you. She laughs and says maybe her next one should be boring. You agree that boring holds up well. Neither of you says anything else. You eat lunch at your desk, from home, because the 20 minutes it takes is 20 minutes nobody is asking you for anything. The portfolio keeps doing on Thursday what it does every other day, quietly adding more to the number this year than your salary will. The Camry is on level 3. It will start when you get to it. It asks for an oil change twice a year and nothing else. Not attention, not justification, not a reason it was worth it. That's the actual luxury, if the word still means anything, a thing that never needs to be defended. Priya will lease something newer in 8 months. It will feel like an upgrade for about a month. Then the statement will arrive on the 1st, and the number will be what it is, and the feeling will be what it is, every month, for the length of the next lease. You'll drive the Camry until the math of keeping it stops making sense, not until someone's face tells you it should. When that day comes, you'll buy another quiet, reliable car with cash and park it on level 3, where the walk is long and nobody else wants the spot. The $2.4 million will be larger by then, not because of the car, because of 19 years of the same decision made over and over in 100 small forms. The position instead of the signal, the compounding instead of the statement, the Thursday instead of the 1st of the month. Nobody in that garage knows any of it. That was never an accident. That was always the plan.